So, welcome to the show. Again, I appreciate you for coming. And I always like to start by diving into stories because I think that that's a good way for people to learn about the guest in an interesting way. And so, in your case, I want to do that like in two ways. One is just like a question that can be briefly answered, and then the second one is like by having you dive into your experience. So I will guide you through that. But like the first thing is, so you right now you're a lot into like these um AI topics, right? And you just wrote your second book on the subject. In your book, you start the first chapter by mentioning a quote by Arthur C. Clarke, which says like any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And then you say that like AI is in some way that magic, right? And it's like this new technology that is emerging and that is being magical in some way. What was your first experience using AI, and how was that experience for you emotionally and that magic?
Yeah, Amelia, it's a good question. So I've actually been involved with AI for a long time. And so I was actually CEO of a technology company that was doing machine learning audio technology. This was 12, 13 years ago. So I've been around
Hmm.
AI for quite some time.
Hmm.
And so I saw kind of firsthand the power of understanding your data, the power of understanding how you can turn your data into algorithms, how you can turn your data into algorithms and use it for something predictive, to use it to help try to tell the future for magic per se, right? And so and so I've been involved with it for some time. I then went to in my background is I went to MIT and I took a couple courses on AI. And one of the things that I did, like I remember one of my professors was talking about a project that she had worked on where they took old cancer images and they took all these images and they fed them back through an AI algorithm.
Hmm.
And after they did that, they found 11 additional cases of cancer that the doctors had missed. So that's magic, because if you are the family or you're that person who they missed, you know, you know, then they are happy that are so they're both happy that you found it and mad that you missed it. So, AI, the magic in AI is how can you reduce that from 11 to 1? It won't be perfect, but can you go from 11 to 1, right? And then what are the other ways to do it? So, how can doctors or leaders use AI to augment, to enhance what they do to have a better experience for everybody involved? So, that's the magic.
Hmm. In the book, there is a part where you talk about how there's a specific case you talk about regarding how lawyers can use AI to like make their work more efficient, right? And to find, let's say, like in a business deal, like the legal implications that it has, or for a business person to use AI in order not to have to hire a lawyer for like a long time and to spend a lot of financial resources on that. And I think that one of the main concerns that is rising right now, or that has been rising over the last years as AI has been evolving, is how AI will replace some jobs. But what I have been reflecting on and also reading a lot about, also like in your book, is that AI is not necessarily replacing all jobs or all existing business operations, right? It's just there are new ways to handle those operations to make them more efficient or to maximize them. Have you encountered recently, as you were writing your book, or like after that, any like other specific cases where you have seen this happening? So like situations where there is no actual job replacement, or where there are just like new ways to do things.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you're seeing AI getting blamed for some job layoffs in the tech space,
Hmm.
probably more than anything. Um, but I think that's just people who are using it as a reason to maybe invest in other areas,
Hmm.
using AI as an excuse. I mean, AI is not superhuman. It's not super to the point where it's going to 100% replace 100% of a job that somebody's doing, right? What AI is designed to do, it's designed to augment what the person does. So the best solution is taking the AI and the human and combining it together, and making that human more efficient, having them come up with new product ideas faster, having them do campaigns faster, having finding ways to be more productive in what they do on a day-to-day basis. So there's that piece of it. Now, in terms of lawyers and those kinds of things, look, over time, yes, I think lawyers, paralegals, I think those types of things, I think a lot of the AI will get put into those areas. So there's quite a few AI software or AI solutions out there for the legal space. Probably the most popular one is one called Harvey AI, named after the guy from the TV show Suits. So I know lawyers who are actually using it. Now the challenge is that you can't use it by itself. It's not a standalone solution because AI hallucinates. It can make up stuff. So, but it can help you draft an NDA. It can help you draft. It can help review documents. If you're using it if you're a defense lawyer and using it to do your whole defense case, yeah, you're going to lose probably, right?
Mm-hmm.
The opportunity isn't in saying I'm going to replace my lawyer with AI. The opportunity is saying if I'm spending $10,000 a month on a really good lawyer, boy, can I spend only maybe $5,000 a month on a really good lawyer and take
Mm-hmm.
that money and invest it in other places. So that's really going to be the focus down the road, and we'll see what happens. Now, I think what you're going to see is I think you may, depending on, look, first of all, on the whole job creation thing, nobody knows the answer. Nobody knows. Nobody knows if it's going to create a lot of jobs. Nobody knows if it's going to eliminate a lot of jobs. Nobody knows. Unlike the internet or the mobile phone, revolution, where there was you had some idea, right,
Mm-hmm.
what was going to happen. This one's a little ambiguous. So I think we'll know probably in the next 12 to 24 months the way it's going to go and the direction it's going to go. I tend to think it's going to create a lot more opportunities. You may just not need as many people at those opportunities. So, for example, if you wanted to go launch your own business tomorrow and you start to do well, maybe in the past you would have need 10 or 20 employees, maybe 20 employees. After you're growing, so the baseline might be in the future, instead of needing 20 employees, you might only need 10 employees. So you might see more companies, more entrepreneurship, but you just may not need as many people. Right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I've heard a lot about interviews to people like Mark Cuban or Sam Altman where they mention things like um, entrepreneurs that are creating new software solutions or new apps or new businesses just using AI, and then having them said, so like Mark Cuban, for example, that within the next 10 years we'll have like the first $1 billion one person business. What are your thoughts on that? On like that
Yeah,
scaling
I
that is
agree.
happening?
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if it's going to be a bit. Yeah, listen, I agree. Yeah, 100%. I mean,
Hmm.
there's no reason why it couldn't be you. Look, I absolutely agree that somewhere someone is developing a really cool AI agent or an AI chatbot or some sort of AI platform that they're using vibe coding for or whatever it might be. And next thing you know, they're going to launch it and it gets a lot of traction. And, maybe it's not one employee, maybe it's no more than three or four. I mean,
Sure.
in the past, you probably would have needed 300, right? So that's my point, right? Which is, you could see companies being created. You're going to see more companies get created,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Because it democratizes everything. Everybody now has access to the same learnings.
Hmm.
So if you were an entrepreneur and you wanted Mark Cuban to be your coach, well, ask ChatGPT to take on the persona of Mark Cuban to be your business coach. Well, guess what? The kid sitting in a village in India or in Africa or wherever, or sitting in a garage in Phoenix, Arizona, they can ask Mark Cuban to be their coach too, right?
Hmm.
So the idea of a barrier to entry is gone, right? So
Yeah.
everybody has access to it.
Yeah. Talking about this like concept of barrier of entry, I think that like with the example that you said, it's like many people that don't actually currently have many access to opportunities as people in the United States or in Europe or in places like this through AI are having much more exposure to things that they can learn, and then also like having much more tools which they can use to create things, right? Given that like this new tools that exist, eliminate in some way the barriers of entry that currently exist for creating businesses or for creating like solutions or different things. Do you think that that is a problem in some way for the value that is being created, or what is like the new differentiator for things that can be automated or really created very rapidly through AI?
Well, I mean, I think the differentiator is going to be for now, for the first time, the differentiator becomes the person sitting in front of the computer. You're the differentiator. The people listening to this podcast are the differentiators. The reason why is because it's going to be all about how you interact and communicate and work with AI. So
Hmm.
that's why prompting and storytelling and writing is going to be such a critical skill set for everybody to develop. Look, you and I could go start a company, individual companies tomorrow. Maybe they're competing companies, but let's say you are a much better talker or storyteller to with ChatGPT and other tools, and I'm not. You're probably going to be more successful because you understand how to communicate and work. So the real differentiator becomes you. The technology is static. Right? The technology is a baseline for everybody, right? I want you to think of it this way. You know, when you have the combustion, every car has, with the exception of an electric car, but you have a combustible engine, right?
Hmm.
You have an engine. Well, if you and I are going to start a car company and you said, you know what, I'm going to create Ferrari, and I said, I'm going to create Honda, they're both going to be successful companies, but the engine technology is going to be the same, but they're both cars, but they have different marketplaces, they have different customer bases, they have different
Hmm.
brand imagery, right? So so think of AI almost like a combustion engine in a car, right?
Hmm.
It's an engine. What you do with the engine is up to you, and
Hmm.
how you decide to communicate with it, how you decide to use it, how you decide to interact with it is what's going to allow you to be successful or not successful.
Sure. Now I would like to get into some advice in some way on how to do this. But like not to keep it very superficial. I want to do it through a story. So like for anyone listening who wants to get into the things that you share, they can just like grab a copy of your book and like dive into the concepts that you share. But like the way that I want to do it right now is by having you dive into your experience working at Dell and growing their business operations in Asia, and like how do you think that if AI as it is right now existed back then, like how that could have helped you like to make things more efficient or to make them happen much more faster or in a much bigger extent. So yeah, I would just like you to dive into that and into your reflections on that.
Yeah, look, I mean, my time at Dell in Asia was awesome. I spent a couple of years in China, Hong Kong, and then spent a couple of years in Singapore, and amazing teams, amazing people. And look, if we had ChatGPT 4 or 5 back then, or Gemini or Grok or whatever, you know, our campaigns would have been faster, right? Our ability to reach customers would have been faster. Our ability to understand our pricing would have been better. Our ability to understand the marketplace and understand the marketplace would have been better. Our ability to potentially use it as a brainstorming partner to think of new ways to go to market or to find new ways to acquire new customers would be better. Our ways to how do we maintain and provide better experience to our current customers would have been better, right? Because we would have used that as a brainstorming to a partner, right, to help us with those kinds of things. So that's how it would have been done, right? I mean, so it would have helped us with product development. Like, hey, well, what are some examples of some cool feature sets that maybe we should have that others don't have, and things like that,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, so there would be hundreds of ways we would use it, and I'm sure Dell's using it that way right now, actually. So who knows what's going to happen?
Was there any like big specific? I mean, it was 10 years of experience, right? Like so many things happened like in that stage of your life. But was there like one main challenge or problem that you look back at right now and like think if AI existed, then that could have been solved like this way very easily, like with this AI or something like that. Is that something that comes to your mind?
You know, Yeah, I'll give you two. Like, so when I first went to China, language is a big barrier, right?
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't understand the documents. People would speak Mandarin, I didn't understand. Now with AI, I can have AI translate the documents for me instantaneously. I can have AI translate conversations with me instantaneously, right? I could use AI to translate my thoughts instantaneously. So that would be a big one, right? So number one, and number two is look. I remember we did a campaign. We launched a new product, and we thought we did everything right. But one of the things we got wrong was that we forgot that people in China didn't have credit cards, and this was back in 2001.
Mm-hmm.
So had we used AI, maybe it would have flagged for us, hey guys, don't forget that people in China don't have credit cards. So if you're going to do, this kind of direct mail consumer whatever business for PCs in China, then you got to figure that out. And so we ended up figuring out without an AI, right? Of course, because Dell's probably top two or three brands right now in China. But it probably would have flagged some of the inefficiencies. Probably would have flagged some of the challenges, that we would have faced. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, sure, and like that part of the like language barrier makes total sense. Like these new technologies that exist make those barriers again like non-relevant. And now talking again about the like differentiators and the barriers of entry. One topic that many people don't necessarily like, or one aspect about AI that people don't necessarily like, is that many times people use that to replace either like thinking or actual value creation, right? Like
Yeah.
actually putting something out there that is really valuable. So there are some people that think of it that way, and then some that are using it to actually like scale the value that they are creating. Do you think that in some way AI generated stuff has less, let's say, like moral or ethical values? For example, with your book, in some parts of your book, you mentioned that you didn't use AI to write like the whole thing. You used it to like make the whole process more efficient for like the writing stage of your book. But you didn't replace your thinking and your ideas with AI. So, what are your thoughts on that? On like the value that AI generated things can have?
Look, I'm not a big fan. Look, I mean, first of all, in my book, we don't use AI, or I don't use AI. I didn't use AI to write the book. Well, what we use AI for, what I use AI for, was give an example of a prompt and what that prompt output would look like, right? So that's the only time we use AI, and we take that and we put that in the book, and we note that, and we say, look, here's the prompt result, for example, right?
Mm.
But in terms of answering your question directly, look, I think people who are just going to ChatGPT and saying, hey, write me an article on podcasting, and then take that and stick it on LinkedIn or do whatever with it, I think that's bad. I don't think it adds any value, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think the real value comes in from the personal experiences of learning. Saying, look, I don't think there's anything wrong with people saying, hey, I want to write an article about podcasting. What are some of the key points I should consider?
Mm-hmm.
What are the pros? What are the cons? What are the advantages, disadvantages, right? And just use that as a brainstorming partner, because that's no different than a podcaster talking to a friend, a mentor, somebody sitting in India or the Philippines. It's the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or a partner, whomever they might be, right? Like, so that's fine. But as long as you go then and take that and you fill in your own words around it, that's where the real magic happens. Going back to your
Mm-hmm.
question about magic, that's where the real magic happens.
Mm-hmm.
Then if you want AI to then review it, edit it, whatever, then that's also fine too. But look, I mean, to just take an AI piece of work and say, here you go, I don't think adds any value. And I think over time, I think people will be able to understand and flag, okay, this is AI bullshit. And so,
Sure. Mm-hmm.
so I think people will be wise to that. And the real winners are going to be the ones that find a way to partner with AI.
Yeah, sure. And now talking about partnering with AI and to make like this conversation more practical for people listening, like I guess the key idea or the key practical idea from your book is chain prompting, right? Because you mentioned when you introduced that idea, you mentioned that like using this AI models, so whether that's ChatGPT or Grok or Claude or whichever, like it's not an efficient way to use them if you just ask how one shot zero shot prompts, as you say in the book. Like if you just ask one question and get one reply, that's not an efficient way to use them compared to actually having like a proper chat with them.
Say,
Yeah, so I would like you to dive into what chain prompting is and how people can start using it to partner with AI.
yeah, I think the important thing here, Emiliano, is that people just need to chain prompting. Don't overthink it. Chain prompting is conversational prompting. It's just having a conversation,
Hmm.
right? So let's say it's by starting by saying, look, I don't know what prompt to write, but you want to have a conversation, right? So you could start the conversation. You can start go to ChatGPT. You can do it over the app, make it multimodal, so you can have actually talk to ChatGPT or write it in, whatever you want to do. You just start with, I'm thinking about going back to business school, and but I'm not sure if that's a good idea. What do you think? Right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Ask it a question, and then
Hmm.
it's going to give you an answer. And then you respond with and it might say, well, that's a good idea, but it might say, well, why do you want to go back to business school and whatever, right? And whatever, right? So then you say, well, think about enhancing my career. I want to do this. I want to do that. Eventually, one day, I want to be a CEO, but whatever it might be. And that's now you're having a conversation, right? Now
Hmm.
that's a simple chain prompt. More advanced chain prompts are going to be things like brainstorming sessions. You might say, hey, I'm looking to brainstorm a new product idea. Well, here's my problem. Help me brainstorm a solution, and it might come up with 5 points for solutions. And you might say, oh wow, I love all these 5 points. Let's go deeper into number 5. I
Hmm.
want to understand number 5 more. And then you just are having that conversation. Boom, boom,
Hmm.
boom, boom,
Hmm.
boom. You just keep chaining that conversation again and again and again and again. And so it's just like you and I are having this conversation.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
this is chain prompting in
Chain
verbal
prompting.
life.
Yeah. No, totally. And one thing that I think is important to highlight from what you said is that like that process of chain prompting does not involve like getting rid of thinking, right? Or of like having your own ideas, even if you use your own ideas to set constraints or like context for the AI, that can be useful. What are your thoughts on like how many people are replacing some part of their thinking or like delegating some thinking, whether that's for school or for like emotional management or things like that? What do you think about those people who are delegating that to AI? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to what I said earlier. I'm not a fan of it. I think it's not about replacing your cognition. It's about enhancing it, right?
Mhm. Sure. Yeah.
It's not. If you're in school and you're struggling in math, do you want just ChatGPT to give you the answer, or do you want to say, "Hey, ChatGPT, I need you to go into study mode because there's now study mode in ChatGPT, and say, here's the problem. Act like Albert Einstein and walk me through how to solve this problem."
Mhm.
Right? That's how you learn, and you're going to learn better than just saying because you're not going to learn anything to solve the problem. Like I think you're going to see schools start to change. I think part of grading and I think part of curriculum is going to change to more of this case study type of methods where you're going to have to prove the formula. You can't just turn
Mhm.
in the answer, right? You're going to
Sure.
have to prove the formula. You're going to have to annotate the report, and you might have to present your report. So
Mhm.
if you're going to have ChatGPT, if you're going to have ChatGPT write a report for you on the American Revolution, it's fine. But maybe your grade's going to be on how well you know the paper, and that you have to come up in the front of the room and present the paper,
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And so, or your test is going to be on your specific paper,
Mhm. And I
right?
mean that could be generated with AI by the schools.
Right. So, so those are, I think that's where you're going. But I think anybody who's going to say, look, I'm going to replace my cognition with ChatGPT or Grok or Gemini, whatever, yeah, those people are going to they're going to fail. They're going to fail. I mean, there might be some successes, but I think that most people will probably end up failing.
Sure, yeah. Now I would like to get into some like final questions about how AI keeps evolving and the future of it, so that you can share like your comments and your thoughts on them, and just some wrap up questions that I always that I always ask all of my guests. So I want to get into like the future of AI, right? And ChatGPT 5 just launched like a few days ago, and your book is was written while people were using ChatGPT 4. So as AI keeps evolving and as these models keep um coming out, whether they are from OpenAI or Meta or yeah, Claude or whichever. Um, what do you think is like a good way for people to adapt, whether it's business people or just individuals to adapt to these very rapidly evolving AI models? Like, do you think prompting will stay the same? Or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think prompting is going to be prompting. I think prompting is. I think the more you are a storyteller, the more you
Hmm.
have command of your language, the better off you're going to be.
Hmm.
So I think there's that. I think ChatGPT 5 came out, and I think it has a lot of promise, but it's also got a lot of challenges.
Hmm.
And people are mad about the rollout. And I think what they've done now is they've allowed you now to go into the settings and select which mode you want. So if you want to go back to 4 or 03 or whatever the case might be, you can.
Hmm.
But look, I mean, I think progress is not linear, and there's going to be ups and downs, and even in this. And so eventually the OpenAI guys will get it right, and they'll get it fixed, and there'll
Hmm.
be
Hmm.
there'll be a ChatGPT 5 update at some point, and that'll fix a lot of the challenges that it has. And
Hmm.
you can select different in ChatGPT. You can actually select kind of different characteristics you want ChatGPT to have when it talks to you,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? So that's pretty cool. But I mean, it just takes time. I mean, look, I mean, it's overall ChatGPT 5 is kind of a PhD doctorate level of experience and
Hmm.
smarts. 4 is more high school, college level, but you know, they're both good, and 5 will be the default in the future. And but right now, there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve on 5, and
Hmm.
that's just par for the course. It's normal, so
Sure.
it's fine.
Yeah. What do you think about how these models keep evolving towards artificial general intelligence? And what are your thoughts on that type
Yeah, I
of
don't know.
AI?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan of that term. It's more to me, it's more super intelligence kind of a thing, right? I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
it's. I don't. I think we're probably some ways away from it being alive,
Hmm.
right? That's what AGI essentially is, and so you know, I think we enjoy the ride, and I think we keep focusing on this being super intelligence and not this artificial. I'm not a fan of the word artificial. I think that
Hmm.
scares people. To me, it's about
Hmm.
amplification, augmentation.
Hmm.
So to me, augmenting intelligence is more important than artificial intelligence. And I think Apple did a good job. For granted that their solution isn't the greatest, and they got to get their act together and fix it. But I think Apple's AI is not called artificial intelligence; it's called Apple intelligence, right? And I think they
Hmm.
recognize that the word artificial is a problem. So
Hmm.
anyways, and it's, by the way, but problem wise, I don't mean this like stop anything. I just mean that a lot of people, when they hear the word artificial means fake, right? Or copycat, or so I just think that there's ways to be able to properly explain it, and I think more people understand that it's augmenting and amplifying what you do, the better off you're going to be.
Sure. No, and I mean it makes total sense because like it could scare like some people who are not adapting to this technology as fast as it is evolving. It's like people who didn't adapt to the internet properly and who don't understand like basic things that we use every day, right? With the internet or with phones or whatever. Then the last topic that I want to get into is physical AI and how AI is being merged with robotics and your thoughts on that. So I was very interested in an interview that I read about recently that was to Jensen Huang, in which he talked about physical AI, right? And into like his advice for younger people to get into like physical sciences, so physics, chemistry, robotics, mechanical engineering, things like this, because this will keep evolving as AI evolves, right? And like an example that is already live that people can experience is Tesla's futuristic diner. So, what are your thoughts on like that that part of technological evolution and how it will keep evolving. And have you experienced any of these robotics plus AI technologies in some way?
Yeah, look, I mean, we are I am probably the last generation, Gen Xers and millennials are probably the last generation to ever manage only humans. In the
Mm,
future, you're going to manage humans, agents, and robots.
mm,
And
mm,
so that's number one. Number two is Jensen's right. Number three is, yeah, I've experienced it in San Francisco airport. There's a coffee
mm,
shop where there's a robot that makes your coffee for you just as good as a Starbucks barista. It's
mm,
awesome.
mm, mm,
It's fantastic. Every time I fly through San Francisco and United and I walk through there, I try to walk over there and get a coffee, and it's awesome. It's got a little personality when it's done. It dances for you and everything, and
mm.
it's pretty cool. It's awesome to see, and so I think you're gonna see more and more of this. Serve Robotics. Got my buddy Ali is the CEO of Serve Robotics, and you see these little robot delivery things going around college campuses and towns and cities now, where where go to Chipotle. The Chipotle person puts it in the thing, and it goes, and it's got fake eyeballs on it and everything. So it
Uh-huh.
makes it like it's a fun little thing, right? So it's cool. Like to me, I think probably even beyond Tesla, I think Waymo is probably Google and Waymo is probably it's a robot on wheels
Mm,
that's using
mhm,
AI robotics, and the Waymo technology is phenomenal and using lidar and going to be using Google's own proprietary technology. But I've taken Waymo probably half a dozen times.
mm,
Amazing experience, awesome experience. Go on your
mhm,
app, Waymo shows up. There's no driver. You get in the back seat. It takes you where you want to go, and it's an amazing ride. You can
mhm,
control your radio, and it's got a lot of safety features. And it's pretty cool. So to me, look, this is the early days, and so I could just imagine. You think about what iPhone 1 was like. You're probably too young to remember what an iPhone 1 was like, right?
mhm.
You could do anything. It was maybe this big, and there was maybe 7 apps, and that's it. You can do anything
Mhm.
with it. But now
Yeah,
iPhone, whatever, 17, 18 is coming in a month, and you can manage the whole world from your phone, right? So
sure.
just think about and that took 15, 16, 17 years to get there. Imagine how this technology is going to advance over the next 5, 10, 15 years, right?
Hmm. Sure. Um, One last question on the like pace at which this is evolving. Just before wrapping up the conversation, I also remember I heard an interview with Sam Altman in which he talked about how we should start thinking about these new improvements that are happening, not as too fast, but like as past improvements that happened like very slow. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Sure. So an example is that like going from like a horse to a car took like hundreds of years, right? Well, that technology evolution is very slow compared to evolutions that are happening right now, which are taking days or weeks or maybe months. But that one concern that people are having is that these things keep evolving like very fast, right? At a pace to which we cannot keep up. And so he is suggesting that we should not think of this evolution happening very fast, but rather as thinking of past evolution as slow. What are your thoughts on that? On like having
Yeah,
the
I
frame of
think
mind
he's
for this?
right. I mean, I think he's right, but I think he's right. But I think the difference is that unlike if you look at what if Henry Ford asked his customers what do they want back when he developed the car, people would have said they want faster horses
Mm-hmm.
because they didn't understand this car idea. So I think the problem is that AI is moving really fast. It is unleashing a lot of capability, but I think we're a little bit slower to kind of understand and harness the power of what it can do. But that's where
Mm-hmm.
prompting comes in, and the better you can prompt, faster you can harness these things. It's not going to be 100 years to adopt. It might take 5.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the way to look at this. It may took 100 years, from the time. If you think about like the Industrial Revolution that had happened, it took about 100 years for it to really reach its potential. Right? Think
Mm-hmm.
about the space race.
Mm-hmm.
From the time the very first airplane flew with the Wright brothers, right, at Kitty Hawk, it took only 65, 66 years to put men on the moon, right? I think what you're going to see here is with AI, instead of taking, you know, if you had AI back then, it wouldn't have taken 65 years to put men on the moon. It would have taken maybe 26 years to put men on the moon. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So it's just, human ingenuity is going to catch up, and the human spirit's going to catch up. And again, the winners are going to be the people who figure out how to take the best of what AI has to offer, the best of what the human potential has to offer, marry them together, and that's going to be your winners.
Sure. I think that's a good way to wrap up the conversation on AI. So thanks a lot for all of what you have
It's a
shared.
pleasure.
And right now, just like three last questions that I ask all of my guests, and you can answer these in any way that you want, whether it is related to AI or like to any other topic. So the first one is like, what is a book, a movie, a music album, anything that you have consumed or watched recently that you found valuable or interesting or enjoyed?
So, book, I would tell people two books. Number one is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, the guy that wrote the book The Martian.
Hmm.
The written book is great. The audio book is probably the best audio book I've ever heard.
Hmm.
The other one is, if you like biographies or autobiographies, Bono from U2. His audio
Hmm.
book is just phenomenal. So those would be the two books. TV wise, I watched, my favorite show of the year so far has been The Pit, Pitt. The
Hmm.
Pit. It's basically it's a story of a medical doctor in Pittsburgh at an emergency room, and it follows his entire shift for a day. Amazing show. It's on I think it's on HBO. It's probably my favorite show of the year. Movies. Let's see. I saw Superman and Fantastic Four. I liked them
Uh-huh.
both. I like Fantastic Four a little bit better than Superman. Yeah, I enjoyed them. So there's that.
Cool. I am a big YouTube fan, so I'll check out that book. Then the next thing is, what is something that you have learned or discovered recently that you found very valuable or interesting?
Wow. Um, I've been using AI a lot for health,
Hmm.
and it's really helped me with bringing down my body fat percentage and those kinds of things, and
Mm-hmm.
finding new workouts and when I'm traveling and the right foods to eat. And like one of the things I'll do is I'll take a picture of a menu. I'll have it
Mm-hmm.
analyze the menu for me and say which is the healthiest option on here, for example, little things like
Mm.
that. So to me, that's been kind of cool to see. So just it's those kinds of things, right? And you can use AI for all that stuff.
Great. Yeah. No, and I mean it also makes sense like considering what we discussed previously. It's not that you are trying to replace your doctor with AI. It's just like using AI to do other things that you wouldn't be able to do just with your doctor or yeah. And then the last thing is I'm not sure if you're much of a coffee guy, but if you are, which is your favorite kind of coffee? That can be a specific coffee drink or a specific type of bean. And what is your favorite place or situation for drinking coffee? And this is because my podcast is called Coffee Lounge, so that's the context behind that question.
Yeah, my favorite bean is probably Hawaiian bean, Kona, like Kona coffee. It's probably my favorite bean. I have a Ninja machine at home. I have an espresso at home. I'm not a big Starbucks guy. I do like the more boutique coffee shops. There's one not far from my office called Hearst Coffee, and they have an amazing Spanish latte with
Mm-hmm.
cinnamon and those kinds of things, which I like. So that's I'd say that's my favorite. So listen,
Great.
plus I've drank coffee in France and Italy, and so to me, I think that's really pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the
Mm-hmm.
best. So
Sure. Well, thanks for all of the things that you have shared in this conversation. I really appreciate all of the insights that you provided. And is there anything else you want to add? Anything other any other topic you want to comment?
no, listen, I appreciate your time, and I'm excited for your future. And if people are interested, go check out the book, right? Prompting Made Simple, and the other book, AI Made Simple. I think both would be valuable to your listeners.